What's up? Hey, it's Romania Black, and guess what? It is finally time for Free, the Final Stroke Part 2. I have got my bathing suit on. I got my drink. I'm so ready. And I've been ready for quite some time. I have been ready to watch Free, the Final Stroke Part 2 since last year. It has been years nearly since I've seen Free, the Final Stroke Part 1, and I have been ready to watch this second installment to finish the Free franchise. And I've just been waiting patiently for some streaming service to decide that, hey, maybe we'll just stream the movie, possibly. I don't know, maybe you want to see it. And then I was going to do this back in March, and then I saw where Crunchyroll was going to have it offered in April. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'll just wait until April when Crunchyroll has it up, and that'll be fine. And in the meantime, I was sent a fan translation of the movie, and I downloaded it just to have it in the wings. I'm like, no, I'll wait till the Crunchyroll one to just see. And then April came and they delayed it, and I was like, well, and they're like, oh, we'll have it out by May. And I'm like, okay, then I'll wait till May. And so then this week I got on Crunchyroll. They have part 1. They don't have part 2. And I was like, you know what? Tomorrow is technically my birthday as I'm recording this. And I was like, I think that for my birthday, I'm going to watch Free, the Final Stroke Part 2, talk with you all about it, go over the bingo card I've created, do a little mini recap here at the start, and then just enjoy this final bout of Free. I do want to do a live stream. I know I've done a live stream for Free already. I want to do one later this summer, probably the end of this month that will into June, that'll be about Free and Sarune together since they're both Kiwani. And we can talk more about it then. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So I've gotten myself ready. It's balmy. It's humid. I've got a drink. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to talk about Free with you all. But before we do that, we need to recap a little bit from Free, the Final Stroke Part 1, because that hour-and-a-half movie had a lot happening. And I went back and rewatched it this weekend and was like, oh my gosh, I forgot all these things. So we have a bingo card to go over as well as some recap notes. So if you have not watched Free, the Final Stroke Part 1 in a while, lots of things happened. The whole movie itself, Part 1, was dedicated to talking about how everyone around Haru thinks Haru is special. Haru just doesn't see it. He thinks that once he hits 20, he's going to be an ordinary person. He's not going to be a prodigy or a genius anymore. He's going from the small fish in the little pond that was doing really, really good to going out into the ocean and realizing that there are really talented people out there. I feel like Haru's struggles in Free, the Final Stroke Part 1 are very similar, and the franchise as a whole are very similar to what Sawamura from Ace of the Diamond, another sports anime that I've watched, his struggles too, because he realizes that there's going to be amazing pitchers in baseball that he's going to encounter over and over again. And it's a bit overwhelming for Sawamura at first, but he ends up kind of realizing that that's what's exciting about it, is finding those challenges. For Haru, he's super competitive, and he's trying to figure all of that out. Like, how competitive do I want to be? Do I want to keep doing this forever? Haru is not like a routine kind of guy. He's spontaneous, and he doesn't like being held down in a routine. He likes to be free to do his own thing. So the idea of having to face all these people over and over again, it's a lot for him, right? So the first part of Free, the Final Stroke Part 1 basically is devoted to everyone talking about how special they think Haru is. Of course, Rin and Makoto are the ones that can't vocalize that. I can't imagine why, unless you're saving it for this part coming up. But Makoto literally doesn't know. He's unsure what he wants to say, and Rin is cut off by a random dog. So that's kind of how that goes. Haru is still determined to be competitive and to be special, and then he doesn't seem to realize that everyone thinks he's a special swimmer regardless of the results that he gets. He thinks the results are the only thing that he can go with. Hiyori and Kinjo Kaide have a childhood past. Kinjo was like a lot more animated. He wanted to be Hiyori's friend, but Hiyori was thinking of Ikuya the whole time. You know, like you do with Kiwani, we can't just have OTPs. We gotta have like a pansexual triad, like in every corner for every single character trio you can possibly think of. But what we do find out is that Kyo, Kinjo's brother, was a swimmer, and Kinjo never got to have that fun swimming with Hooray that he originally wanted. Basically, we find out in part 1 that Kinjo is a tsundere, a massive tsundere, and he needs the nakama beam to hit him hardcore moving forward. Asahi is a total friend to Ikuya. Kasume is around to tease Ikuya, and I love Ikuya and Kasumi's relationship because Kasumi teases everybody, and Akuya's the one person that can't handle it, and he has to leave, and Asahi's like, dude, what are you doing? And Kasumi's like, why can't I handle it? It's great. Natsuya is still drunk texting everybody, including Rin. Rin and Akuya, they formed this unlikely friendship. I always thought that Rin and Akuya would be like hardcore rivals for Haru. No, they are totally fine. They're like totally respect each other and are actually really good with each other. And then Azuma, who is Haru's coach, seems to know Kinjo's brother. Kinjo hopes that Azuma won't leave or diss Haru if he loses, since he quote-unquote only cares about results. I'm sure that's going to come to play in this movie. And then Natsuya and Sosuke want to take on the world together. Nao and Makoto are helping them. There's just so much shipping in part 1. That has me really excited for part 2, right? And then Mihail, we find out he trained Albert as a kid, but Albert doesn't quite remember him. Rin finishes 5th in the heat in his qualifier. Haru goes to chase after him to find him after the race. And then we meet Sudo. Sudo's on Kinjo's team, and he's a breaststroke swimmer that's kind of like competition for Akuya. Okay. Akuya gets taunted by Kinjo and gets towards, he kind of gets riled up because of it. And Kinjo ends up being disappointed in Akuya, saying that he let the people he cares about that care about him down. Like Kinjo's like, Kinjo knows Hiyori looks up to Akuya, the mermaid princess, as Kinjo says. And he kind of thinks that Akuya's not good enough to get Hiyori's praise, which I'm like, what is this? Hiyori's getting all kinds of ships around him. It's kind of amazing, right? And then Sosuke and Hiyori, they both get like frustrated on behalf of their could-be boyfriends, and they have to go like work off their frustration. Akuya decides he wants to make himself better, and he surrounds himself with Natsuya and the others who care about him. He and Rin commiserate, and they become friends. And Rin reveals that his relationship with Haru is complex and not simple. No, that's a very good way of putting it. And then Azuma says that with swimming you have to be objective, and with Haru being emotional, it could cause you to lose. And so I'm waiting for the flashbacks to come in this part with that. Makoto says that he's, is believing in Haru, that he'll do the right thing, and he's going to believe in him no matter what. Haru questions why he wants to swim, and that he wants to make it to the finals with Kinjo and Albert. And he keeps pushing himself to get faster to catch up with them, to the point where he kind of hurts himself in part 1. And so we'll talk about that with the bingo card, that Haru gets a little bit in a tizzy. And then he confronts Azuma, demanding that he help him get stronger and faster to beat Albert, and that he'll do whatever he can to beat him. So Kinjo ends up getting a bronze medal, Haru makes it to the top 8, and Albert doesn't even compete in the finals, leaving it wide open for them to reunite for a competition. Makoto celebrates with Haru, and Haru says he was happy to finally swim where he wanted to always swim at. And Rin and Sosuke reconnect too. Rin feels disconnected and frustrated, saying that he wants to compete with everyone and win, but his weakness keeps coming out, and says that he needs to win against himself first. And Sosuke asks what he wants to do. So Ren's whole thing is that he needs to get stronger. Akuya and Haru are thinking the same thing, but they're all coming at it from very different angles, right? Haru wants to push himself to his limits, and he warns Makoto he may not see him for a while, but Makoto encourages him. Rin and Haru want to get stronger. Ikuya is getting support from his friends and family. I loved the contrast in part 1, rewatching it, where Akuya had all this support from Natsuya and Nao and Asahi and the others, and then we hard cut to Kinjo, who's by himself, like just in this dark place. Like Kinjo needs the Nakama Care Bear stare of free friendship to hit him in this second half. So I'm hoping that ends up happening. Albert is forced to compete in the remaining races from his robotic manager. And then there's talk about the World Championship and Athens that will happen after that, and the training that will go along in the meantime. Azuma tells Haru he has to throw everything away to win. Haru says he doesn't want to, which reminds Azuma of Kyo, who is Kinjo's brother, who was swimming for things that was important to him, namely Kinjo. And Azuma says he'll have to redo his body to win, and Mihail remembers how Kyo Azuma and him swam together at one time and how Haru reminds him of Kyo. Mihail says that if he sees Rin in himself, he wants to test his resolve in that aspect. Akuya wants to get stronger to prove he's not weak. Asahi thinks he's special the way that he is now, which is a nice little conversation they have. Natsuya thinks that Akuya is getting scouted and wants to go pro, just like Rin. Rin gets emotional at New Year's and asks Haru if he's thinking about Athens after facing Albert and what lies beyond. Rin wants to keep swimming and hopes Haru will too, but Haru isn't sure. Haru is just laser focused on beating Albert. He's not thinking of anything long-term. He's just thinking of short-term goals, right? And then Haru laments that he's been scared of getting older and seems that he will waste what time he has being special and at the top of his game. And then, of course, Makoto isn't able to tell Haru. When we got to the climax of the last movie, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Because it's like, everything's like great until the last 15 minutes. And then Makoto is about to tell Haru this really important stuff, but then he has to leave, and Haru like gets attacked by his inner demons, and Rin shows up at the worst time, and Haru doesn't know what he wants to do beyond beating Albert, and he feels abandoned by the fact that Rin and Akuya have decided they want to swim in their own events and go forward and not swim free with him anymore. Like, Haru liked having that support of those around him and that crux in the free competition, but now he's by himself against Albert, and they're like going off doing their own thing and possibly moving forward ahead of Haru, and Haru's afraid he's going to get left behind. And it's like, but Haru, you know? And then Haru gets in his own head. Rin gets frustrated at him that Haru doesn't understand. He says he was glad to swim relay, but Haru doesn't have to have anything to do with him anymore. And Haru is stuck with this wall that is Albert, keeping him from moving forward. And so then Haru decides to throw everything away to be stronger, and we're left with the "for the team" brick that Rin wrote on. Makoto is worried, not being able to get a hold of him, and Rin knows something's up with Haru, but doesn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Albert wants to become stronger until he's unbeatable, and we see that Haru may want the same. And Haru has the voiceover of 10 a prodigy, 15 a genius, 20 an ordinary person. And in the preview, it says Makoto is thinking about what Haru means to him, and Sosuke is thinking of Rin. So yeah, so we've got all that recap, basically, from the first film. Lots of fun things happening. And so I created this bingo card. I didn't get a chance to get it printed out, but I've created this bingo card that we're going to basically look for. You guys can see it here. It's also on the community post and on Patreon and on the Discord for the free channel. But you guys can follow along and see. These are my predictions of things we could get in this second movie. These are things that I want us to get. Not all of them necessarily, but a lot of them. And then we'll see at the end what we actually end up getting. So Ryuji and Mihail backstory, Azuma and Mihail, I want a flashback. I want backstory. I want to know what Kyo's deal is. I need to know these things. We didn't get a Bakari Sweat product placement last go around. I'm still thinking we're going to get some of that. Akuya and Rin have an intervention with Haru. That could very well happen. We'll see. Rin speaking his Australian English. I need it. I need Makoto to confess to Haru. And by confess, I mean I need him to say what's on his mind. What he was trying to say in part one, I need Makoto to just spill it out. I need this to happen. I need Albert to stand up to his manager, like this robot man that's just using Albert for the accolades. I need Albert to stand up. He's a big ol' ass man. He could do it. Someone getting injured or sick, I don't want that to happen, but it's going to be the climax of the final Free movie. Could be a thing. The Bird of Fate has to make an appearance, if not within the first 30 seconds, at least some point in the movie. It did in the last film, but it needs to happen again in this one. I fully predict Haru is going to have a mental breakdown. I think he's going to have a mental breakdown. I think Haru's going to reach his limits. We'll see how that goes. Momo, if Momo is able to be normal around Go, that would actually be amazing. He tried last movie when she started crying for Rin. He short-circuited and resorted to Pyunsuke, but he was real close. I was like, oh man, Momo, you were so close to being normal around Go. So close. I want a confession or angsty talk in the trees. We didn't get that last. We got it under, I guess we did get under the trees, but we need another one. We need a confession or angst under the trees. I want to find out what Rei and Nagisa have decided to do. I need that. I need Now and Natsuya swimming together. I want Albert to find the joy of swimming and to smile genuinely. I want Kasumi to play basketball against Asahi. Asahi promised him, so I want some confirmation with Kasumi and Asahi. And then I need a spirit animal nakama montage. I I need the polar bear. I need the killer whale. I need the penguin. I need the butterfly. I need like all these things to happen and them all to be connected to Haru. I need Azuma and Kinjo to have heart to heart where they talk about Kyo. I feel like there's unsettled business there. I need that business to be settled. With Rin, Haru, and Akuya, I want a relay. Sosuke, will Sosuke say something that will make Rin cry? It is a possibility. And then I've had this in the last bingo card, but I need Kinjo to get hit by the Nakama beam. We're rewatching part 1. Kinjo was all by himself, and it was really sad. I want Kinjo to get some much needed Nakama talk. That would be amazing. Haru, I feel like he's going to cry when he sees the tape the group made for him. I need him to see the tape the group made for him. Akuya, I want him and Natsuya to race and have a bonding moment. Albert's manager, I'm sure is going to have creepy dialogue. That's going to happen. And then I would not be surprised if this is the last free thing, if we got like an end credits time skip epilogue. Not like a long time skip, but if it was like, you know, you talked about the world championship and then there's Athens after that. If the end of this movie ended, if we had the climax was the world championships, and then if we had this epilogue at Athens, Greece, where Haru and Rin and Akuya were all swimming together with Albert and Kinjo, that would be really cool. I would like seeing that. So, and maybe if Sosuke showed up with Natsuya, that would be the dream. That would be the dream. But y'all, I have stayed spoiler free for over a year. Cheers. I feel it is time to like see what the heck I've been missing all this time, and to finally watch the final free movie. So I hope y'all can keep up with your bingo cards. We'll go back to them at the end of the movie, but y'all, I've wasted enough time. It is time to watch Free, The Final Stroke, Part 2, and see what all happens. So, y'all, I hope you grabbed your best beverage, your umbrella, your swimsuit, you're ready to go. Let's not waste any more time. This is a long movie. We got a lot to talk about. So we're going to start Free, The Final Stroke, Part 2, and just see what happens. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's. I feel that I was able to have my cake and eat it too with this movie. Oh my God. Y'all will have to excuse me because I may be partaking in a birthday celebratory cupcake as we end this movie, but that felt like, that was a lot. Could you imagine a double feature of these two movies back to back? Could you imagine that? That it just is so much. It's so much. We had to have gotten a bingo. If not a blackout, we had to have gotten a bingo in this because, oh my God. That was everything. That was everything, and yet there was still room for more. There were things that didn't get brought up that I wish had, but for the most part, the thing about Free that is such a challenge is that you have, in making one giant 3-hour final movie experience, you have part 1 and part 2 of The Final Stroke, which is essentially like 3 hours worth. This was basically like a season of anime put into movie format. It doesn't really follow a movie structure, and I think that's gonna get, I think a lot of people in part 1 had issues with Free, The Final Stroke part 1 because it didn't feel like a movie. It felt like a season of anime that just kept going. And that's kind of how this feels as well. But I'm not mad about it. I'm perfectly fine with it because it's like, okay, you gave us 3 hours of essentially like a mini series to round out the series. I'm good with it. Cool. But Free has such a hard task ahead of it because it has 3 seasons worth of characters who are all wonderful characters that you want to see all of them, right? You want to see all of these characters be able to do their thing. And it's hard in a movie to be able to hit all the beats, let all the characters have their moments, and still have like stakes and a cohesive plot. And somehow Free manages to do it against all odds. Free manages to do it. I was like, okay, yes, please. And then those end credits where it was all the different pictures from all the official art. Like, this is a 10-year franchise. Like, this is the 10th year of Free. And I love this series so much because it's fan service at its best, but it's also got so much heart and so much soul to it, and it's just wonderful. Like, this is my comfort anime. Like, if I get sick, I will put on Free and I will just enjoy it because it's just so just fun, and it's just wholesome. There's like no, even the stakes, it's like it's not really that bad. Free doesn't get that dark, right? I'm glad that they resolved things where it wasn't quite as dark and scary as it could have been. Like, it was still pretty sad to see Haru like be in a state where he's hurt and potentially, in a state where he's, sick and can't swim, and he has to go through rehab and do rehabilitation and physical therapy to keep swimming. Like, I didn't see that coming at all. I was like, oh, Haru actually is not going to be able to swim without rehabilitation. What? I didn't see that part coming, but I'm glad that he's able to swim. For a hot second, I was like, if they killed him off, a top 10 anime betrayals of all time. But no, he's just rehabilitating, kind of like Sosuke, and getting to the point where he can swim again. And then challenging Albert, because of course. I kind of, on the one hand, I loved the relay, getting them to all swim together. That was great. And then for a second, I thought they were just not going to have Haru swim against Albert at all when he couldn't do the free leg, and Kinjo's like, yeah, he's not coming, which we're going to talk about Kinjo. I love Kinjo. Oh my God. But I was afraid that they were just not going to have him swim against him at all. But no, they have him in the relay because, of course, a relay of all things, that's Haru's thing, is the relay race. They bring it all back for them all swimming together. This was like just checking off boxes of what did you want to see? I was only spoiled to one thing in the whole movie. Now that I've watched it, I was only spoiled to one thing, and I was like, damn it. But it's fine. It's a very minute thing. But I wish I hadn't seen it ahead of time because that would have been such a reveal. But what can we do? So let's go through this bingo card before we talk about the movie proper. Ryuji and Mihail backstory or flashback. We kind of get that. We do get that. We didn't get enough of that. I wanted more of Kyo. That is the one thing I wanted more of in this movie, was the backstory to get some final explanation between Kyo and Mihail and Ryuji. I'm assuming that Kyo is dead. He's died. And it was because he just swam too hard. And that's how Azuma lost him. Which is such a weird thing, because Azuma losing him, and then he ends up coaching Haru kind of in a similar position. And it's kind of a weird thing because Azuma sees he sees himself in Haru, but he also sees Kyo. So it's kind of like trying to balance, how much do I encourage of Haru that is myself, and how much do I try to hold back because I'm afraid of what happened to Kyo. So there's that going on. And then he makes a statement, Azuma does, that he's going to save. And some of the translations in this were a little wonky. Like, they say at the very end, Kinjo says that it's his cousin. We're like, no, we know it's his brother. But it's like, okay, he said he's going to save Kinjo. And I feel like there's just stuff left unsaid. There's enough left in this film for the audience to kind of take their own route that I like. It's nothing definitive, so the audience can just take it however they want to. It's wide open. But I liked the Ryuji and Mihail stuff flashback we did get, but I wanted more of it. I'm being greedy. Of course. But then we did not get a Pocari Sweat product placement, so none of that. Although we did get lots of the cola. Akuya and Rin having an intervention with Haru. I guess we did. I mean, Rin kind of had an intervention with Makoto to Haru. He kind of had an intervention where they did the swimming race. I was like, of course, of all things, if you gotta talk it out, have a race to get to know each other, right? I thought that was great. But Akuya wasn't exactly. I guess maybe Akuya and Rin. We'll talk about the relay, but they didn't exactly have an intervention, so we won't count that. Rin didn't speak English in this, so we can't count that. And in the top line, Makoto confessing to Haru. He kind of does. That was the other thing. The very first film made such a big deal about the video they made for Haru, and then about Makoto not knowing what to say to him. And in this, the video is referenced at the end that people have listened to it, but I was really hoping that Haru would see it and like get some motivation, but I guess Kiyoani thought that would be far too cliche. At this point, it'd be too cliche. One thing I did like was Nagisa. Nagisa in this movie was great. I love Nagisa as a character, and I like him more as the series goes on. I think as Nagisa matures, he gets to be a better and better character, but man, Nagisa, he was having none of Makoto's haphazardness. One thing I loved was that Nagisa, he basically was like, you haven't talked to Haru? You haven't told him how you feel? Why aren't you communicating? Like, I just love that Nagisa's just like upfront and to the point being like, talk to Haru. And he does. He ends up talking to Haru. But one thing I was there was a lot of Haru-Rin shipping in this movie, which is fine. I'm all about it. I'm a multi-shipper for free. I like Haru-Rin. But I feel like the first film set up Makoto and Haru a lot. And then this one kind of focused more on Haru and Rin, which needed to happen because they needed to make up from the end of the last film. But I kept wanting there to be more with Makoto and Haru. I wanted more of that. And we didn't quite get enough. Like, we obviously you can tell that Haru cares about Makoto and vice versa because they're together constantly. But I just wanted a little more. I wanted to be greedy. So the first line, we got Mihail and Ryoji and their flashback backstory. Albert stood up to his manager. It was at the very, very end for a hot second, but he stood up to him and said he was going to do things his way. I didn't mean to laugh, but Albert's just the English for Albert. I don't know. I now know how I'm sure Japanese audiences feel whenever we like try to dub over things. They're probably like, oh my God. I think I get what they're talking about now because Albert just like, you're something else, Haru. So good. It's so cheesy, it gets me. That's the kind of cheese I love from Free, being like, the water favors you. I'm sure for a Japanese audience, it sounds fine. They don't know any different. But for an English audience, you're like, well, that was a line reading. You read that line. Like a ChatGPT AI system, but you read that line. It's so good, so wholesome and cute, though. It's fun. But he did stand up to his manager, so... someone is injured or gets sick. Yes, Haru gets injured. The one animation of his leg spasming, that was freaky. I did not like that at all. Did not like that at all. No, sir. Was not having that. And then Bird of Fate sighting, we saw it like 4 times in this. I was counting. It's like we hit a fourth Bird of Fate sighting, but that's fine. I was all for it. I mean, it's the Bird of Fate. How do you not? Right? So there's that. Haru having a mental breakdown. I don't know if we can count that. I don't know if we can count Haru having a mental breakdown because he kind of does. But it's more like, Haru does not really have a mental breakdown. He just kind of comes to a realization. And what I like about Free is that at times it seems like it's going to get really melodramatic, but then it kind of levels out and you're like, okay, no, we're good. We're fine. It's not going to get too crazy. And that's kind of how this movie got. Like, Haru's condition was pretty scary, but at no time was it just like the dun dun dun. Like, and Haru didn't really have a mental breakdown. He just kind of like was physically overexerting himself. And luckily he has such a support system that they were able to help him before it got really bad. So there's that. And then Momo was not able to be normal with Go. No. The closest he got was when I loved Izuki and Go being like besties, being like muscle BFFs. But yeah, when she's like, you spend your money on stupid things. I'm like, I love the Mikashiba siblings and how wonderful they were in this, that they were so much like regular siblings. It was absolutely a joy. I loved that, where they had like the Zoom call together and then they were like supporting each other at the store and seeing each other. It was great. It was wonderful. So we got 3 of that second line. Confession or angsty talk in the trees. We did get those. We did get angst under the cherry blossoms. I'll count it. Yes. That was wonderful. College lives of Nagisa and Ray. Nagisa and Ray going on to swim in college is so wonderful. I love that they're on rival teams. Nagisa and Ray being on rival teams is so much fun. And it's just Ray being with Akuya and Hiyori. And Notori and Ray being on a team together, the captains. I love it. I love it. I love that they're with Akuya and Hiyori. That's so wonderful. But Nagisa with Kinjo is a flavor of tea that I am 1,000 times here for. And I'm so sad because that was the one thing in the movie that was spoiled to me. Some people in the Discord, like months ago, shared some fan art of Kinjo and Nagisa together. And I was like, Kinjo and Nagisa together? Why are they sharing fan art of that? And they were wearing the same team jackets. And I was like, is this a spoiler that Nagisa ends up going to Kinjo's university? And it was. And I was like, ah, damn it. So that is the one spoiler I had for this movie that I kind of was guessing. It was like, because I mean, you put 2 and 2 together and I was like, ah, man. So I wish that had not been shared in the Discord. I wish people had like vetted that before they shared it, but too late now, so it's fine. But Nagisa working with Kinjo is so wonderful, and Kinjo immediately accepts him, like okay, he seems legit. The Samazuka Chads are there. The Samazuka Chads, the one with the mohawk and everything, they're all there as well. That's so much fun. I love that. But Nagisa will get Kinjo out of his shell. Kinjo got out of his shell in this movie. I freaking fell in love with Kinjo for a lot of reasons. But yeah. All right, we have the free thing here. Nao and Natsuya did not swim together. Tragedy. Complete tragedy. Nao did not get to swim. I was very sad. I wanted to see him and Natsuya, although they're like practically together the entire thing. What have you. And then Albert, I don't know if Albert found the joy of swimming, but he definitely smiled. And he seemed like he was in a much better place by the end of it, which I'm glad. I'm glad that Haru was able to reach to Albert. I'm glad that happened. That was great. So we did get, I'll count the Albert one, and then the college lives and the angry confessions. So we got 3 there, plus the free sign. Kasumi did not get to play basketball against Asahi. I just need an OVA. If Kiyoani ever gets bored and decides they want to do one more thing with Free, if they could do an OVA of Kasumi and his non-existent basketball team and playing basketball with Asi and the others, that would be so much fun. I mean, they practically had a Run with the Wind crossover in this, right? They practically had a Run with the Wind crossover in trying to have like the running montages, so they could do a basketball one, but that was sad. I do love Kasumi being there. There was not a spirit animal Nakama montage, although there was a relay. We'll talk about that in a minute. Azuma and Kinjo having a heart-to-heart. They kind of do. I'll count it. They have that little confrontation at the end where he's like, I'm gonna, help you understand one day about your brother, what have you. I'll count it. We'll do that. And then Rin, Haru, and Akuya. They're in a relay together with Sosuke. I was so over the moon of just having not only having Natsuya and Akuya together, but Hiyori and Kinjo. I kept thinking they were going to make more of a big deal about that. Like the first film, Kinjo's whole thing was that he wanted to swim with Hiyori. And he finally gets the chance to, but he's such a damn tsundere that he doesn't want to admit it. And he's like, but then he follows them and is in every scene with them afterwards. So I'm like, Kinjo becomes one of my favorite tropes of characters. And it's the tsundere that he's like, Kinjo tries to be so cool, but deep down he like wants to be friends with him. But he's like, no, I'm just too good for that. And you're like, oh, come on, you're going to cave. Like, I freaking love it. Kinjo, he grew on me in the last movie, and this one, head over heels. But them getting to be in a relay together and like bursting through with the Nakama, we'll talk about it in a second. And then Akuya and Rin and Haru being in a relay. Akuya being happy. Like Dive to the Future, like all I wanted to see in Dive to the Future was Akuya being happy. I was wanting that so badly. And here we get it. We actually get Akuya like smiling, looking jovial, being in such a great headspace. Like it was absolutely wonderful. And then Sosuke saying something that makes Rin cry. Did Sosuke make Rin cry? We'll have to go back through it. I think he does. I think Sosuke does make Rin cry. Rin definitely cries in the movie because he's our diva shark. He has to. But I think Sosuke makes him cry. Maybe. I have to check. So we're close to getting bingo. We at least got 3 of those, 2 or 3 of those. And then Kinjo, we would have had a bingo. If Kasumi had played basketball, we would have had a bingo with that line, but Kinjo got hit by the Nakama beam. He did. I'm so happy. I love at the end, Ikuya's like, do you think the Kinjo can be our friend? And Hoora's like, maybe with some time. And I'm like, he's already there. Like, he's hanging out with you all. He's already there. Like, I'm so happy Kinjo is now friends with them. And he's swimming the relay with them. He didn't even have to swim with Haru. I really thought Kinjo did swim with Haru in the qualifiers. So he did get to swim with him and figure things out about him. Look at that. That was so good. Haru did not cry seeing the tape the group made for him. So we can't count that one. Ikuya raced Natsuya with him. They have a bonding moment. They were in a relay together. Yes. I had it in the last free thing, but yeah, Sosuke and Rin getting to relay together and getting to race together. All the things. Albert's manager did have creepy dialogue. Yes, absolutely. He did. And then our bingo is we did get an end credits time skip epilogue. When those credits were rolling and they were going through all the artwork, I was like, this is really cool. But if we end this without seeing a final post-credit scene, I'm going to be a little bit upset. And so I was really happy that they did give us that. I was like, oh, thank God. Thank goodness. But yeah. So we got a bingo. Exciting times. I want to go through this movie and just note some highlights. I mean, I feel like the bingo card covers a lot of the highlights, but y'all, this movie doesn't, like I said, it doesn't start out exactly like how you would think a movie would, because it goes through several different scenes, right? And so he says, Shigino-kun told us yesterday it would start raining at noon, didn't he? Yeah, that is that Kasumi, right? Maybe? But I like that Hiyori has to come to Kuya's rescue with the umbrella. Has to every time, right? I did not expect us to start out with Kinjo and him in the scene together. And I'm going to be taking screenshots throughout this, so y'all are going to have to excuse me. But Kinjo, I think what makes me like Kinjo a whole lot as well is that Daisuke Ono, who voices Erwin in Attack on Titan and many other voices, is the voice of Kinjo, and you can kind of hear Erwin a little bit in this, and I'm a huge Erwin fan, so I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, Kinjo being like, I don't want to be your friends, but I guess I could be your friends. Well, maybe. Like, just part of the best journey in this movie is just Kinjo getting to the point where he's friends with them. It's like, come on. And him lamenting, worrying about Haru, lamenting losing to Albert, and then he just heads out, blah, blah, blah. And then the one thing that just kills me in this movie, and I'm sure people have critiqued it, is that characters just pop out of nowhere. Like, Sosuke is just right there under the bridge as soon as Ikuya turns around. And then Natsuya, like in the cab with Haru, as soon as he drops Haru off, Natsuya's right there. It's like characters just pop in. Nobody in Free knows how to call ahead or like say hey, which they do know how to call in this movie, so I can't say anything. But it's just hearing Hosoya as Sosuke is just so wonderful. I love it so much. And then of course Hiyori has to show up with the damn umbrellas. He would. And then we have the Zoom call with the 3 Mikashiba siblings, which are so wonderful. Momo becoming the captain and then having a final race against Ayumu of all people. Like, Ayumu becomes the captain. I love that she's the captain of the group. I love that her and Momo square off. I wish we could have seen it. I was like, Free, you tease us so much. How dare you? But yeah, and then hearing Suda's voice was great. And so they do, the Mikashiba siblings do like a nice little recap of the movie to start with. I thought that was good. The recap was very nice. It was only a couple minutes, very short and sweet. It was done through them. It was done differently. It was very cute. I enjoyed it. And then we go back to we have the opening song, which was sung really well. I liked the song a lot. It had a great melody to like recap Rin and Haru's like tussle at the very beginning. It makes sense at the beginning here that Rin and Haru have their argument from the last movie's climax. And so this movie focuses a lot on Rin and Haru. I'm fine with it. Like I said, I can ship Haru Rin. I just felt that they teased Makoto trying to find his words so much in this that I was really hoping that we would get more with that. And we didn't get as much as I wanted, but it was fine. I mean, Haru knows how Makoto feels for him and whatnot. So yeah, God, Nagisa is a freaking delight. I love his little mushroom cardigan. I love Nagisa just being the biggest ray of sunshine. Him and Ray are just absolute wonders. Romeo, I love his new haircut. And Shizu, I love how they look in this. Ayumu getting like her courage and everything and being so much more like stand out and outgoing is wonderful. And then we have the Samazuka Chads saying goodbye to Notori and the others. I love it. I love Momo just like grabbing Notori's hand and being like, are you going to be okay? All you and the Chads. I guess I could be a captain. I liked it by the end. We see though that Momo steps up and he's a great captain, seemingly. I love that he seems to grow up. It's so cute. And Notori's like, you'll be fine. Them and the Chads. Sosuke just, God, I love Kiyoani. I'm going to be taking a lot of screenshots because Kiyoani just has a thing about making everyone look stellar, right? Also, Kasumi is just like the best. Love Kasumi. And then, yeah, Pseudo. We didn't get a lot of Pseudo, but he was there just to kind of tease Kinjo. It's great. I love it. Also, the muscle-bound like Zoom call where Go and Izuki are like comparing muscle ads, and Ayumu's just sitting there like, I feel like this is too much. Like, God, I love it. And the crazy thing is this movie was done around the time, I mean, Zoom, we talked about how free technology kind of dates itself a little bit, like with the cell phones. And I feel like the Zoom technology dates itself a little bit. Like this came out around 2020, 2021. But it doesn't ever feel, other than that, it doesn't feel dated, which is nice, right? And then, of course, Natsu and Nao are just together throughout the whole movie. They've just been making out in every scene. We just see the after. Natsuya and Nao are like Rei and Nagisa. They are together in every scene. They've possibly going to make out or have been making out. And it's perfectly fine. I just kind of absolutely love it. Natsuya. And then we have the Mikashiba siblings there. I love that Go's talking to her brother. It's cute. And then Azuma indeed. So I really loved that we got to see Haru's grandmother in this. That was so sweet. And little baby Haru, like she looks like him. And we get to see Haru like growing up looking at all the water. Like I love that. And just seeing how Haru has always been someone that loves the water and feels natural in it. Like it's like the future for him has to have water in it. It has to involve swimming. There's nothing else for him. That's his element. That's where he's best at. Which makes when he gets injured all the more heartbreaking because you're like, no, you want Haru to be okay. But what I love about it is that Haru, he's been trying to find like, well, how do I articulate and turn what I love doing into something that can be the future for me? Because he's like, I don't necessarily want to go pro and deal with sponsors and ads and all this, but at the same time, I want to be myself. So it's hard trying to find that balance of what fits for him. And it's so cute seeing like his background. And then the people that changed his life being Rin. And I thought that it was interesting the way they did the theater with like the baby versions of Nagisa, Makoto, and Haru watching like the film of their lives. It felt Fujimoto. I don't know if you've ever like read anything by Tatsuki Fujimoto. He does Chainsaw Man. It felt like a very cinematic, like avant-garde Fujimoto decision to have it like take place like in their mind in a theater which it turns out to be like a dream that Makoto and a dream Haru's having, which is interesting. But I thought that was such a very interesting design choice. I would not have imagined it, right? Also, Baby Nagisa in every scene. Baby Nagisa is amazing. And I like that Nagisa is like shipping Haru Rin and being like, they make a great couple. And Makoto's like, I guess, but I kind of want to be there too. And then having like the Power Rangers type fight that they have with Rin and Haru. And then we go back to middle school and go like talking about how Haru has been running away from his friends and running away from what he wants to do. Also want to make note, there is like a Neon Genesis like crying like connection between Haru and Albert. I wanted to see more Albert and Haru moments because I feel like they're kind of birds of a feather. Like Albert feels like he's caged by the world around him and he can't swim freely. And Haru feels like he just wants to swim freely, but he's not able to do so to the best of his ability. So that there's similarities between Albert and Haru. But oh my god. I love that little like psychic connection that they share in it. It's great. And then being like, the swimming gods favored him, even though he was swimming all alone and was cold. So then we have Haru like being Haiji Kyosei for a hot second and running and then collapsing. And that's kind of like, we've seen throughout the last movie and this one, like Haru's health like really get a little scary, like him pushing himself past the limits. And everyone kind of being concerned about him, being like, are you okay? And then, of course, Sosuke is the one that runs into him. I love it. I love that Sosuke makes him drive in the back, like driving Miss Daisy. It's great. And what's kind of cool in this is that both Haru and Sosuke, they know that Rin is a diva shark. He's awkward. He's a diva shark. He cries a lot. He gets super emotional. And Sosuke, like, kind of trusts Haru to figure out what to do. He's like, you'll figure it out. Like, I have faith in you. It'll be all right. Like, I liked that moment. I liked that Sosuke kind of seemed like he trusted him. And then now just Natsuya, I mean, just pops in. What a slut. No. Joking about that. There are some really cool stylistic moments in this movie, like Rin choosing to open the door to tell Mihail about him going pro and getting a sponsor. And then opening the door up and Mihail being like, you know, do what you gotta do. And then Asahi singing. Like, what the hell, y'all? I was like not expecting Asahi to have this like song moment. Like who, like him just like humming and singing. Voice actor can sing, y'all. Asahi gets one of the best glow ups. He kept having like red around his eyes and nose throughout this. I'm not sure why. But then him talking to Rin and trying to like get, you know, comfort him and figure out what's wrong with him. I love it. Miyano Mamoru does an amazing job as Rin, as always. He does great. But the voice actor for Asahi does a really good job too. I just like Asahi. He's one of my favorites in this. And so, of course, Rin is being a diva, worried about Haru. And Asahi's like, why don't you just go, you know, and talk to him like a normal person? And Rin's like, would he understand? It's like, oh my gosh, you bunch of gay divas. Get your acts together. I love it. And then Haru's pushing himself to the brink. And Albert's like doing what it does. I love Ray. We get to Ray introducing himself to the team, saying especially he's butterfly and he's beautiful. It's great. And he's alongside, we see Akuya and Hiyori. And Hiyori's like, oh, I know him. Isn't he Haru's classmate? And then Notori from Samazuka. Yep. And my specialty is breaststroke. So if we're thinking about this, Ray does butterfly and Notori does breaststroke. Hiyori does backstroke. And then Akuya can do free. So those four could totally be in a relay together. I'm all about it, right? I am all here for it. I love that. And then both of them coming together. I love it. Didn't Haru have another underclassman? He's like, oh yeah, Nagisa. So about that. And then I just love this. Introduce yourself. And they're like, oh, that's Kenjo senpai. All the Samazuka chads. He reminds me of how Rin-chan used to be. That's a really good point. I like that they say that he used to be kind of like how Rin was. Yeah, Kinjo being kind of like Rin. Well, we all know how Rin ended up, so it's only a matter of time for Kinjo. And they all think he's scary, except for Hazuki Nagisa. Oh my god. And he's like, my specialty is the breaststroke. Nice to meet you. And then he's like, oh, Kinjon, can I swim now? I'm just like, ah! I love he calls him Kin-chan. First time they meet. It's great. And Kinjo's like, you're an insane ball of energy. And I just like, he's like, what do I do with you? And the Samazuka Chads are like, oh my god. And he's like, make sure you stretch first. He's like, yeah, I'll be okay. I feel like Kinjo is totally fine with Nagisa, because Nagisa is very much like a can-do, gung-ho, I'm just gonna do it type of person. And I feel like that's kind of how Kinjo is. So I feel like their characters would actually be really compatible in the weirdest of ways. Like their personalities are polar opposite, but their like core beliefs for swimming and individualism are there. Like they're very self-motivated. So I feel like they would actually get along. So I needed more of them. I want more of Kinjo and Nagisa, because Kinjo does free and Nagisa does breaststroke, but so does Pseudo. So Pseudo, you got company. And then we have them all doing bowling. Like we just cut to the bowling alley. Like this is just like one thing after the other, right? And he's like, here I go. And of course now is like amazing at bowling. And Ray has this like weird claw on his arm. And he gets a gutter ball without it. What was the scores with them? What were their scores? They had like it up there on there where he thinks he's doing really good. Kiwani had a 10-second bowling montage. It's 10 seconds of animation. And they make it look better than 90% of the anime out there today. Why? I'm here for it, but it's just like, why? And so, yeah, and then it messes up. So we have, obviously, I'm assuming that Ray is the one, he got the gutter ball. So Ray is the one doing poorly. And of course, Nagisa's doing great. Nagisa's like has a fantastic bowling thing. Look at that. It's awesome. I love it. And then Makoto showing up for all of them. And Makoto being worried about Haru. And Nagisa's like, well, then just go talk to him. They do an amazing job of animating Haru in this movie. Like, I'm getting to the point where him and Azuma, where, like, Haru is, like, really hurt. Whenever they make Haru look like a Victorian woman with tuberculosis. He just looks like he's so frail, but he's so beautiful. You're like, dang it, Haru. And, like, the sunset and everything. And then he, like, collapses. Oh, my God. And his legs just not having the strength. And Azuma worrying that he's going to be like Kinjo. Or like Kyo. Mm-hmm. And then I don't remember if I noted it in part 1, but where the director, Albert's manager, is, it looks like the Neon Genesis Gendo office. There's just like it's like all wide open with the one desk. It's literally a Neon Genesis reference, and I'm living for it. I'm like, Albert is the O1 unit. So yeah. So we have Makoto and all them training and everybody just looking awesome. I really like Asahi's hair in the one scene with Hiyori and them. It's great. I like how good everybody looks here. And then now talks about Makoto's like dream of teaching others. It's great. I'm gonna get a picture of that. Yeah, I think Makoto, no matter what he does, he could teach kids or he could stay a personal trainer. I like the Ikuya and Sosuke bond, which is really great. And then we cut back to Haru and Azuma. Azuma and Mihail worrying about each of their boys and how similar they are, right? So then, Rin's worried that he's not focusing like he should be. He's all over the place. And that's when Makoto calls him, right? He's like, I need to push myself harder. But that's when he finds out that Haru is pushing himself too hard. And Rin kind of gets mad at first because he's like, you're not letting Haru practice? Like, how does Haru feel about that? And the whole scene with Azuma and Rin and Makoto, it kind of just happens. And you're like, But I get why Rin is upset, because Rin kind of feels the same way as Haru. He feels like they both need to practice to get better so they can compete at nationals. And he's thinking, well, if you tell Haru to quit practicing, like, what's that going to do to his spirit and his competitive strength? Rin doesn't know how bad Haru is at this point. He just thinks that Azuma's punishing him for not getting better like he should. And he doesn't know the full story. And Makoto's like, shouldn't we, like, hear him out? Oh my gosh. It's like, it's such a good scene. I'm like, and just seeing like Rin up in Azuma's face. And then, Makoto calms him down. And I love that Azuma's like, I can't let the mistakes of the past keep happening. And Rin's like, well, nobody cares about your past. This isn't, who cares what happens to you? This is about Haru and now. And my favorite part of this is that Azuma's like, hey, look, you're like out of high school now, right? So you're like 18, right? He's like, and Makoto is begging Rin to like, stop, don't let this go any further. And and of course Rin is about to cry because of course he is. But I love that he's about to cry and Azuma is like, let me talk to you like an adult. Can I speak to you as an adult? And then he just like pushes him up against the wall and says, if you care that much, then tell him yourself. I love it. Grab a hold of what's important to you and don't let it go. Don't rely on others to do it for you and don't blame things on the past. It's your life. Settle this yourself. And a lot of that was literally like, it was literally Azuma telling him this because of his own mistakes, right? Yeah, because apparently he didn't tell Kyo what he should have, and then it was too late. So that's fun. And then they both run around looking for Haru because, of course, and then the animation of poor Rin falling, and then they find him in the pool. And it's just, and then what would any bro do but confront your rival and race it out? Confront him, race it out, it's fine. I felt a little bad for Makoto in this moment because I wanted Makoto and Haru to get things settled, but I guess we had to have Rin and Haru do it first. I guess. Why not? But they do. Everything gets settled. It's fine. They race each other. They realize like how great it is that they're back, at full strength with one another. It's great. I like these two random guys in the pool. These two randos that are like just watching the monitors. Yeah, they're like, isn't that a world record? Like, they're just like, no way, idiot. Like, I love that they've just been watching the outdoor pool this whole time. These two lifeguards. It's great. That's hilarious. And then, Rin hugging Haru. It needed to happen. It was a long time coming. I'm like, long time coming. I waited years. Waited years to see that hug. I'm sure every girl in the theater was like screaming their heads off at that point, because how could you not be? How could you not be? And then they apologize and make up, and it's really good. It's great. I want to get like a nice little shot of them together there. There we go. That's it. That's it. I'm gonna get that shot. But yeah, he's like, I admire you. Don't make me keep saying it. And of course they drag Makoto in because why wouldn't they? I feel bad, Makoto. He's like, I didn't get to like change out of my clothes and y'all did. I'm like, I want to get back to that scene of them swimming together. Okay. Get back in there. Here we go. Yep. Do all that. And Haru basically apologizes to them all for everything that happens. It's really nice, right? What I really liked about the flashbacks we got was that Makoto was telling Haru about the time that he, like, some older kids that were swimming against them beat them, right? And I was like, what a bunch of pricks. Like, those older middle school kids, they were such jerks. I was like, what the heck? They were so mean. And then we find out that Haru, it wasn't the fact that he lost the race, and it wasn't the fact that they were making fun of him, but it was the fact that they were insulting Nagisa and Makoto that made Haru mad. And we actually see Haru be like, I got pissed off and like got upset, right? That there was that whole thing. So it was kind of cool to see Haru be like emotional like that as a kid and defending his friends and seeing that side of Haru exist. Like, I really liked that. I thought that was really neat. And baby Nagisa throughout all of this was so adorable. I loved it so much. It was so cute, right? It was just so sweet. And then Makoto saying that he likes Haru. Which, again, I felt bad for Makoto because he did like him, you know. And then Rin thinks that was about the time that he started liking Haru, too. It was great. Just seeing Haru with, like, all these smiles on his face has been so nice. I absolutely love that, y'all. And so, yeah. So, then we have Ray and Nagisa at the restaurant. They just like dine and dash. They decide to go get stuff ready and they just leave the restaurant. I love it. Nagisa's like, we don't have to pay. But yeah, also want to make note, I know there's nothing to it. I know there's probably nothing to it. But I'm just saying, like, all the bisexual lighting of the swimming pool, the red, blues, and purples. Just saying. And then they all decide that they're going to train together for the tournament, and Azuma's not surprised, and Mihail's all for it. I love it. It's great. And Azuma's just being a big tsundere about it. So we have all this run with the wind montage. It's great. They all practice together. Akuya, like Natsuya is practicing with Akuya and Asahi and Hiyori and Sosuke. I like that we had like this B team that was practicing the whole time. And it turns out to actually be for something. Because I was thinking, I was like, what are they practicing for? Like, what's that going to amount to? And it amounts to the fact that they all end up being in the relay. So I was really happy that that actually did something with that. That all this training wasn't just to not show us anything. No returns for it. We actually get a reward for seeing them train. It's great. I just wish we had seen Now swim, but that's all right. And we don't really see Makoto either. But seeing them all train, the training montage, it was great. Seeing them all working to get all strengthened up for everything. And then I love seeing Rin and Haru like smiling at each other during practice, and Azuma thinks of him and Mihail. I love seeing young Azuma though. Like seeing like Azuma and Mihail like in their glory days. It's so cool. Like the way that Kyoani animates them, they just look great. And Mihail, he kind of has a little bit of a Notori look to him. A little bit. It's nice. And I like that, of course, Azuma is like, he's like Haru and Rin mixed together. And Mihail, for saying he sees a lot of Rin in himself, he has a lot of Kasumi in him, right? And then, of course, there's Kyo. And then he's like, I want to swim more freely. And then, yeah, you're so weird, Ryu-chan. And then we see, yeah, Kyo. I like seeing younger Mihail and Azuma, though. And then we see Kyo, Kaide's brother. Kiyofumi. Stop using Chan. Kind of like Makoto. Such Makoto vibes with his character, right? We see him for like a hot second. And he's like, I really want to see you swim with everyone, Ryu-chan. Your swimming makes everyone feel good. Yeah, yeah. And of course, Rio's like, what? Yeah. What a babe. But yeah, he, you know that he's just old Buckethead's dead, but it's so sad because yeah. And then from there, that's really the only montage we get with Azuma and Mihail, which is a little bit sad. But then like Haru is constantly sleeping, right? And Sosuke, what I like about the scene is that Sosuke's left with Haru after everybody else goes to grab, to tell everybody about Haru like falling asleep. And Sosuke's like, don't push yourself too hard because I know what that's like. I like that. I like that Sosuke's the one to like try to tell Haru like, don't overdo it. I know what that's like. It's hell to get back to where you need to be. And then of course we see like Rin panicking and like being like, what do you mean you overexerted yourself? And Haru's like, it's fine. And just, we don't even have to have the dialogue. It's funny. And then they just race it out. And that's what we end up doing. So yeah. So we go to the tournament, Nagisa and everybody doing their best, giving it their all. They tried. They don't exactly break through Nagisa and Rei and Natori. But then we have Rin and Sosuke racing. Such a good time seeing the two of them race. And then I'm glad that Akuya won against Pseudo. I'm glad he got his revenge. Pseudo starts crying. It's like, I'm glad that Akuya, who has struggled this entire series to get to the point where he needs to be, actually gets some accolades and shows off that swimming that he was known for, right? I love that. That was so good. And then just, it's wonderful. Him looking up and being like, seeing that he got first place. And Pseudo crying, yeah. I just, seeing Akuya be that happy and him being all smiles is so wonderful. And then, of course, Natsuya is like so happy for his brother. And Hiyori and Asahi, who are the two main Akuya ships, they get drug into this. And then Kinjo's like, oh, I knew you could do it if you tried. About time you got serious. I love it. But yeah, old Kinjo. And then Sosuke races up against Hiyori. And I like everybody's all together. Again, also gonna make note the fashion choices in Free are wonderful. Everybody's fashion looks great. I love Rin's plaid the best, but everybody's at the cafe, like hanging out, having like snacks and everything. It's great. And they all announce who's racing in what parts. It's just so good. I paused in a perfect frame of Natsuya getting all up on Asahi and Kasumi looking so happy about it. So good. Yeah. Just wonderful. So yeah. And then we cut back to everybody wants to go watch the final race. And then Ayumu has like somehow mafia connections in her family or something. She has connections to like a helicopter, like girl of the Kunikita family. And Suzumi's like, it looks like a pufferfish. I kind of ship Shizu and Ayumu. I like that. It's great. Also, Romeo looks wonderful with his haircut. It's great. So yeah, and then we go to the national tournament. Everybody looks amazing. Why? I mean, would we doubt them not? And just everybody on there on the bus coming in. I love all the interactions. Like we see Asahi and Hiyori like interacting is so great. Like the Akuya ships. And then of course, Akuya and his brother Natsuya, you know, being bros. And then Sosuke, he looks so good with the shirt and tie. And then him looking over to Rin. Yeah, this show, they know what they're doing. Just shipping the hell out of it, right? And then Haru showing up. I liked Azuma and Makoto hanging out because they both like have a stake in Haru being safe. So I thought that was good. And then he sees Kinjo and has this conversation about, you know, Kinjo's worried. And Kinjo's the one that says he's worried about Haru. But we have Kinjo, little baby Kinjo with his brother telling him about the water. And then that transition from Kinjo as a kid back to being an adult is really well done. Like Kyoani, the animation in this movie is just absolutely gorgeous. And then him turning back to tell Ozma that he's worried that Haru's pushing himself to the limit. I love that scene where he just gives him that side eye. It's great. And then, okay, can we just say that one thing I was not expecting out of this entire film was the idea of Kinjo and Haru being a ship? Because they kind of was for a hot second. For a hot second, Kinjo and Haru were kind of a ship. And then Sosuke's like, don't do anything weird to him. I kind of was starting to ship it. I was like, man, because the funny thing is that Kinjo, he gets that Haru he gets like a vibe from Haru that's kind of like his brother. And his brother went through something similar to Haru, seemingly. And so you can see there's that connection there. And I'm like, what the heck? And then when Haru passes out, like on the bench, and Kinjo, like when he passes out on the bench and Kinjo finds him and is worried about him, it's kind of crazy, right? And he just sees him there. Yeah. He's up against the wall, passed out. And Kinjo finds him. Mm-hmm. And then we have Akuya and Rin going after their goals, their dreams. Hiyori magically pops up. And then Akuya just smiling all over the place. And Hiyori being like, I don't know what to do with this. It's like, Hiyori's like, I don't know how to handle you smiling and being so happy. He's like, I didn't do anything. I got a medal. I'll get a medal. I feel like I owe it to all of you. You'll be okay, Akuya. Since you're the one swimming. Mm-hmm. And yeah. It's so nice. Seeing him so happy like that, it's so wonderful. And I feel like we waited so long to see Akuya in a good place. And then Rin does well too. It's awesome. I love Rin getting so excited and like just flinging the water everywhere. It's so beautiful. Yep, and they both get their bronze medals. They make the top 3. And that's when Kinjo finds, like, puts the coat over Haru. I'm like, Kinjo has no right to look that good in that green tank top. He has no right to look that good. And then, yeah, everybody shows up saying, don't do anything weird to him. Love it. He's like, don't worry, he's just sleeping. It's so good. And then, of course, and I like that Kinjo, like, shows up to Albert and is like, yeah, he's not going to race you today. So, whatevs. I love it. His spirit won't be broken even by you. And Albert's like, excuse me? It's great. So, yeah, and so Haru kind of comes to the point where he realizes with himself that he doesn't need to run away anymore. That he needs to stick with the team and do all that. And then, of course, I like that Kinjo, like, taunts Albert, being like, are you really satisfied with this? Or do you think that you should, like, you know, keep racing till you can race Haru? And then Haru comes in, and he's like, fine, you want to do the free you want to do free in the relay? Fine, but you're going to do the finals. I'm going to do the qualifier. And it's just like, it's like a dream come true. Seeing all the, and then Nagisa and Ray stood up all night making the friendship bracelets, they're rainbows. Come on, Kiwani. And then I was like, I ain't no slouch. I know how late they were staying up. Ray didn't go home that night. I'm so excited I can read all the free fan fiction now, and it'll be great. And then Rin keeps telling Akuya that he's like, well, I could go say, you know, stuff to Haru, but our relationship's more complicated than that. And I'm like, come on, Rin, you know. And then, yeah, there's a moment here where like Haru or Hiyori is like talking to Kinjo, asking if he's nervous. And he's like, I'm not nervous. And so they're like, let's swim our best for Haru, Kinjo. And he's just like, fine, I don't need you to tell me. And then I like that Natsuya's like, you need to act cuter sometimes. you need to be a little bit more cute, right? And he's like, ugh. And then even Hiyori says he really does. And Kinjo's like, excuse me? Like, I told you to shut up. Like, he's just such a tsundere. It's great. But yeah, they do the relay. And Kinjo realizes, you know, how great it is. Now is like, oh, Natsuya. Now is like having heart eyes from the stands. And then they ended up doing it. They end up getting the right qualifying race so that the others can be in the final. I love it. It's the dream team, right? There was like Natsuya being able to swim with his brother, and then Hiyori and Kinjo being able to swim together. And then you had the dream team of Rin and all them swimming. It's just so wonderful. It's what else could you ask for? And then they all swim together. It's great. And everybody cheering him on. It's awesome. I love it. And them all doing it. Ugh. And Sosuke speeding up more in the second half. Yep. It's great. And okay, I'm sorry, but that one shot where Rin is holding Sosuke up, it's like perfect Rin fodder. I can't help it. There's just so much good happening in this episode, in this race. It was great. I'm trying to find the part where they're swimming together. And then, yeah, it's just so wonderful. And I like that they were talking about Sosuke being from Tokitsu, and then Notori and all them were like, no, he's from Samazuka. And they do the chant and everything. And then Akuya saying, this is my first time I felt this excited. Swimming is awesome, isn't it? And they're like, yes, of course it is. I love it. It's just awesome. And then I want to get that shot of Rin holding Sosuke. I'm like trying to find it the best I can, because it's like it's like one shot, and I'm like, I'm just like, God, all the fodder. Yep, there we go. And then, yeah, it's great. And then Rin does all he can do there, and then Haru goes in, does that one swim, and against Albert, and they're tied. They're going neck and neck. I was like, I really expected Albert, but when Haru gets up on the diving board and he's like, I figured out why I'm swimming. He's like, and I want to show you so that you're not swimming coldly by yourself anymore. And it's like, I feel like that, like, I wish we could have gotten in Albert's head in that moment, but it's such a good scene where he's just like this cold swimmer, and then Haru, like, we kind of do get in his head though, because he sees the bird, and then we see him like looking towards Haru. And Haru wants to have a real race with him and, like, gets him to come into the light. It's so sweet. I wanted to see baby Albert talk, but whatnot. He's like, it's too early to start crying, Ryuji. Oh, that's so good. Sweet. He's like, I'm not crying. But yeah, I love that Haru was able to reach Albert. And then he's like, oh, well, your swimming's not too bad. And he's like, I'll race you again. It's so sweet. And then we had the hug, and they're like, it was the best race ever. And then Haru collapses. And I was like, is he dead? I was legit worried for a second. I was like, I didn't want this to be anything serious. And yeah, Haru's smiling that moment. I want to get a picture of it. But so then he collapses, right? He ends up collapsing, and everybody's worried about him. Of course, he's like in Rin's arms. Why would we think there'd be anything else? And then it fades to black, and I was like, what? Now, the one thing I don't get is the girl that we see with the suitcase. I didn't know if she was just a random passerby, and she just finds out this information and just out of curiosity. Or if she was like Haru's mom or a sister or something. We're led to, by the end of it, to think she's just some random person. But she's like, has hair like Haru's, though. And they're like, it's so big. It's that guy, right? Yeah, that was such a shame. Even though he won a medal. And we see Nanase Haruka, Matsuoka Ren, Kirishima Kuya, Yamazaki Sosuke win a long way to medal in a relay of souls. And then, yeah, what do we see here? Is Nanase... I guess she's just some random person, but they animate her so well. He was released from the hospital last month, and he's back in Iwatobi. Okay. So, yeah. And it's Notori and Akuya talking because they're on the same team now, right? And then, yeah. And so then we do the whole montage, and then we get the idea that... And we get the idea from... Where we got there? We cut back to Rei and Nagisa training together. And Asahi and his group is training with them. It's so cute. We get that Asahi is still training with his team. Rei and Nagisa are meeting up with him for like some joint practices. It's great. And then we like cut to frickin' Kinjo hanging out with Hiyori and Sosuke and Akuya. Like, what the heck? Momo as Samazuka's captain. Mikoshiba Momotaro will show you how he prevailed as a final warrior in the farewell match. Oh my god. Momo grew up. It's sweet. And she's like, I'll accept your challenge as Iwatobi's swing club's captain. I love it. And then the two boys next to her. I love it. And there's others on the team too. We see that there's others there, but we don't get to know them because it's, new generation. We don't need to know them. And so then, yeah, Hiyori and Kinjo hanging out together. There's a lot that happened. They lead you to believe it's just a scene with just the two of them, and then you find out, no, there's other people hanging out with them as well. He's like, I'll tell you about it later when we're by ourselves and not with these two freeloaders. And we see Sosuke and Kasumi behind them. Kasumi's just tagging along because he's fascinated with Kinjo and wants Kinjo to be friends with them, right? And Sosuke's just like, I'm tagging along because I don't know if I trust this guy yet. It's great. And Kinjo racing Sosuke. I would love to see Kinjo race Sosuke. That would be amazing. And then Akuya showing up. He's like, I'm going to win either way. I love it. And then that shot of all of them. Sosuke looks so good in that shot with the medals. Sosuke looks amazing with Rin and everything. Love it. And then, yeah. And then we see the one girl that's Go's friend hearing about them going to Athens to compete. Albert stands up to his boss. It's great. Now and Natsuya are in an aquarium on a date because of course they are. Why are we surprised? And then, yeah, Mihail and Azuma reconnecting. Love it. And then Makoto goes to see Haru and tells him about Rin. And then Haru... I like that Notoria's with Rin, and Notoria's like doing a study abroad there, kind of like what Rin did. I love that Notoria was inspired by Rin. That's so sweet. And they finally find out about him being related to Mihail. And then, yeah, and then Rin and Haru reconnect at the railroad tracks. Like the best symbolism ever. And then they're able to swim against each other. It's great. It's such a good movie. So wonderful. I loved it so much. I definitely want to, I want to do a Sarune live stream at some point this summer. And I would love to talk about Free along with Sarune because they're both Kiwani. I've been told by Sarah on YouTube that there is a like 7-chapter like prequel manga that's out right now, but it doesn't have any official translations. If I get time later and I'm having free withdrawals, I have a lot on my plate right now, but if I get some free withdrawals later this year, I may have to go back and check it out because I'm just so sad that Free's over now. I'm so sad Free's over, but I mean, if you had to go out on a bang, going out in style, I mean, this was the way to do it. This was honestly the way to do it. To go out on top with 2 back-to-back movies that are amazing, that have so much content, and just giving you all the fan service you could possibly want. You can't beat it, right? No. I really enjoyed it. I liked this movie an awful lot, and I'm glad I finally got to see it. I'm sad that my journey with Free is nearly finished, but it's been such an amazing ride. It was one of the first things I watched on this channel. It's my comfort anime. I will go to this series if I'm feeling bad and put it in and just be like, just swim in the nakama. So I love it so much. So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. There's so much to talk about. I can't wait to hear your comments down below. But y'all, I look forward to talking about Free even more with y'all soon. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll talk to y'all again soon with more Free. Bye.